The teller's smile disappeared the moment she saw him. "Sir," she said sharply, lowering her voice, "this window is for high-value clients only." He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in calmly and said, "And what window should the owner of the bank use?" It was a rainy Thursday morning in downtown Augusta, Georgia, and Pinecrest First National Bank was buzzing with its usual mix of corporate clients, pension withdrawals, and small-town charm. The interior was pristine: polished marble floors, floral arrangements on counters, and soft jazz playing just above the hum of polite conversation. But when Marcus Hill walked through the front door, something shifted. He wasn't dressed like the other men in the lobby. No tailored suit, no Rolex, no designer shoes. Instead, Marcus wore a plain gray hoodie, faded jeans, and sneakers smudged with Georgia clay. He looked like someone coming in to cash a paycheck, not someone with enough capital to buy the entire block. And that's exactly what Carly Jennings, the teller behind window 3, assumed. Marcus stood in line patiently. He wasn't in a rush. Carly, mid-30s with a tight ponytail and sharper opinions, caught sight of him from across the floor. She nudged her co-worker, whispering something with a chuckle. When Marcus finally reached her window, he offered a gentle nod. "Morning. I'd like to make a deposit." Carly's smile turned cold. "Are you sure you're in the right place, sir?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Last I checked, this was still Pinecrest." She leaned in, voice lowered. "We serve priority clients at this window. If you're here to cash a check, that line's over there." She pointed to the far left, where a long queue had already formed, mostly working-class patrons, some in uniforms, some holding loose bills and government-issued envelopes. "I'm here to deposit," Marcus replied calmly, sliding a thick envelope across the counter. Carly opened it and paused. Inside was a cashier's check for $2.7 million, made out to a business entity, Hillstone Holdings Group. Her eyes narrowed. "Is this yours?" Marcus nodded. "All mine." She hesitated, unsure whether to call the manager or security. This couldn't be right. He didn't look like someone who handled this kind of money. "I'll need to verify this," she said, standing up. Marcus didn't stop her. He simply smiled and said, "Ask for Mr. Benson, the branch director. Tell him Marcus Hill is here." That name hit like a punch. She blinked. "Mr. Benson? Our manager?" Marcus said, casually checking his phone. Carly disappeared behind the frosted glass door, walking into Benson's office with uncertainty in her step. From inside the office, muffled voices escalated. Then suddenly, the door swung open, and David Benson, the branch manager, rushed out. "Marcus," he beamed, arms open. "You're early. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." The entire lobby paused. Marcus stood, shook his hand. "Figured I'd stop by, see how things are running." Benson turned to Carly, now ghost white. "Carly, this is Marcus Hill. He's the majority shareholder of Pinecrest First. We work for him." She froze. The envelope, the check, the name, all of it clicked together. Too late. Marcus wasn't born into money. Raised by a single mother in Columbus, Georgia, he grew up watching her juggle 2 jobs, her pockets often empty but her pride intact. She cleaned banks, this very bank, scrubbing toilets while suits walked past her like wallpaper. Marcus watched. He remembered. He went to Clark Atlanta University on a full scholarship, studied finance, and graduated top of his class. Then he built his fortune from scratch: real estate, tech consulting, and finally, acquisitions. When Pinecrest's parent company filed for bankruptcy during a merger, Marcus saw an opportunity. He bought 62% of Pinecrest shares through a shell firm, outbidding everyone who underestimated him. He didn't want the name recognition. He wanted the power to change what power looks like. Later that day, Marcus met with Benson in his office. "I wasn't going to say anything," he said, "but your teller just profiled me." Benson's face went red. "I'm so sorry. I'll have HR take immediate action." Marcus nodded. "No, I don't want her fired." Benson looked surprised. I want her to learn. And I want the bank to change. He slid a folder across the desk. New policies, anonymous client ID training, anti-bias hiring assessments, and mandatory equity workshops. This is the future of Pinecrest, Marcus said. And it starts with accountability, not vengeance. The next week, Carly was placed on a performance improvement plan, not punished, but required to attend the first round of training Marcus personally sponsored. At the training session, she sat awkwardly as Marcus walked in to address the room. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, he said. But I will say this. If my hoodie made you uncomfortable, ask yourself why. If my skin made you suspicious, ask yourself who taught you that. And if you're working in a place that handles people's futures, you owe it to every person who walks through that door to check your bias at the vault. The room was silent. Carly's eyes were glassy. Word of the story spread like wildfire, thanks to a local customer who had recorded part of the interaction on their phone. Bank owner profiled by his own teller, delivers masterclass in grace, became the headline of the week. Social media exploded. Some called Marcus a gentle revolutionary. Others asked how they could switch to Pinecrest. Enrollment shot up 23% that month. Marcus declined interviews. He didn't want fame. He wanted the next young boy walking into a bank in dusty sneakers to feel welcome, not watched. 2 weeks later, as the dust was settling, Marcus returned to Pinecrest for a routine review. As he exited the building, Carly stepped outside behind him. Mr. Hill, she said softly, I wanted to say thank you. He turned. For not firing me, she continued. For making me see. I was wrong. Marcus nodded. We've all been wrong before, he said. The point is what we do with that. She smiled faintly. I'm learning. Marcus returned the smile. I know. Power isn't always about who speaks the loudest or walks in wearing the finest suit. Real power is silent. It listens. It forgives. And when it shows up in a hoodie and sneakers, it changes the world from the inside out. You don't have to look like money to be worth everything. And sometimes, the person you judge is the one writing your paycheck. Check your bias. Or life will check it for you. As Marcus returned to his car, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Sir, we've just received a complaint from the Atlanta branch. A regional manager refused to approve a loan for a veteran-run startup, citing appearance concerns. Marcus stared at the screen. Another battle. Another lesson. He looked ahead, engine humming. Guess it's time for another visit, he muttered. Marcus Hill wasn't new to being underestimated. But after the Pinecrest incident went viral, something shifted. People cheered him as a quiet hero, a man who rewrote the rules of respect and power. Enrollment at Pinecrest surged. Media requests flooded his inbox. But Marcus stayed focused, one branch at a time, one community at a time, until one message changed everything. It came from his assistant, Janelle, late on a Friday evening. You need to see this ASAP. Atlanta branch. Loan rejection. Vet-owned business. Manager cited appearance concerns. Marcus froze. He knew that phrase too well. Appearance concerns was code. It was the same language used to deny black, brown, and lower-income applicants, polished up to sound professional, but rooted in prejudice. By Monday morning, Marcus was in Atlanta. He walked into the Peachtree District branch unannounced, wearing the same hoodie and jeans combo that caused the Pinecrest stir. Immediately, eyes followed him. A security guard shifted at the door. But Marcus went straight to the front desk and asked for Rachel DeWitt, the regional loan manager. Rachel was in her early 50s, pristine blazer, clipped tone. When Marcus introduced himself, she blinked. I didn't recognize you, she said quickly, adjusting her blouse. He didn't smile. I'm here about a loan denial, Veteran Works Logistics, run by a Mr. Julian Cross. Rachel nodded stiffly. Yes. The applicant didn't meet our visual risk assessment metrics. Visual risk? Marcus repeated. It's an internal metric, she explained. Dress, demeanor, professional presentation. It helps us gauge borrower reliability. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. You denied a decorated army veteran because he wore boots and a flannel shirt to a meeting? Rachel fumbled with her pen. It's about perception. These communities respond to certain standards. Marcus leaned forward, voice low and razor-sharp. You mean white standards? She went pale. Julian was a 34-year-old veteran who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. After returning home, he used his military savings to build Veteran Works Logistics, a trucking company that employed other returning vets. He had no debt, a solid business plan, and government contracts lined up. All he needed was a $250,000 business development loan to expand. Rachel had denied him. Twice. Julian didn't even know who Marcus Hill was. He just knew he kept getting turned down. When Marcus called him to meet, Julian sounded confused. Man, I've been through the ringer, he said. But I didn't think starting a business back home would be harder than dodging bombs overseas. That night, Marcus sat in his hotel, staring out at the skyline. He thought about his mom, about how she once applied for a home loan and was told, "This neighborhood isn't a match for you." He thought about all the invisible walls the system built around people who looked like him, dressed like Julian, or dreamed like his mother. One teller's mistake was never the full story. It was the symptom of something deeper, bigger, systemic, and it was time to hit it at the root. Marcus called Janelle. I want every Pinecrest branch audited for loan denials in the last 5 years, he said. Sort by race, zip code, and reason. Janelle paused. That's going to shake things. I'm counting on it. He launched Operation Ground Up, an internal initiative to expose and dismantle discriminatory lending patterns across all Pinecrest branches. He hired civil rights attorneys, historians, and data analysts. He brought in veterans, community leaders, and economists. And he called Julian. You're not just going to get your loan, he said. You're going to be the face of a new fund for veteran entrepreneurs who've been denied not for their numbers, but for their skin. Julian got quiet. You're serious? He said. Marcus replied. Dead serious. But not everyone was ready for change. Whispers began swirling through corporate circles. Board members started grumbling behind closed doors. One message landed in Marcus's inbox anonymously. You've made enough noise. Time to quiet down before you lose what you've built. Marcus ignored it until the sabotage began. A fake article surfaced online accusing Marcus of fraud. An anonymous complaint was filed to the IRS about Hillstone Holdings. A wire transfer to one of his foundation accounts was mysteriously blocked. Someone powerful was trying to silence him, and they were just getting started. A week later, Marcus was called into an emergency board meeting at Pinecrest's national headquarters. 12 people sat around the table, 10 of whom had never shaken his hand, yet owed their positions to his capital. At the head sat Carlton Briggs, a longtime board member and Wall Street relic. Marcus, Carlton began, your efforts are admirable, but concerning. Marcus folded his hands. Concerning. The press. The audits. This ground-up thing. It's attracting attention we don't want. What kind of attention? Marcus asked. Carlton leaned back, smug. The kind that threatens donor trust. And frankly, our image. Marcus kept his tone steady. Your image is exactly what I'm trying to change. Carlton glanced at the others, then dropped the bombshell. We voted to freeze your authority until further review. Marcus blinked. You have voted to silence the man who owns 62% of this bank? Carlton smiled. We found creative legal grounds. As Marcus stood to leave, Carlton added one more thing. Oh, and Marcus, don't bother contacting the press. We already did. You'll be painted as emotional, a risk to stability. You know how that narrative plays. Marcus paused at the door. Then, without turning back, he said, You think this is the end? It's not. It's just the moment history starts writing your names down, for the wrong reasons. As he walked into the hallway, his phone buzzed. A text from Janelle. Just found something in the audit. You need to see this. Right away. Marcus opened the attached file. His eyes widened. Inside were emails between Carlton and Rachel. Coordinated denials. Racial targeting. A secret blacklist. Marcus clenched the phone in his hand, heart pounding. They hadn't just underestimated him. They'd incriminated themselves. The file Janelle sent wasn't just damning. It was devastating. Marcus scrolled through hundreds of internal emails, buried under mislabeled folders, between Carlton Briggs, Rachel DeWitt, and 5 other high-ranking executives. They called it Operation Barrier. Its purpose? To quietly block high-risk applicants, defined as individuals with non-traditional presentation, applicants from unstable zip codes, and anyone flagged under Visual Risk Category 3. In one email, Rachel wrote, VRC3s almost always come back to bite us. Deny and delay. Let them disappear. Another thread listed applicants' names with red highlighted annotations. Too urban. Dress unprofessional. Accent might scare clients. Unlikely to manage credit. Beside each name, denied, denied, denied. And at the bottom of the last document, Julian Cross's name circled in red. Marcus called Janelle immediately. Where did you get this? He asked. Janelle sounded shaken. From a terminated employee's archive. She'd saved everything on a hard drive, said she was planning to blow the whistle but got scared. Is it enough for federal action? It's not just enough, she said. It's explosive. Marcus took a deep breath. Then let's light the fuse. Marcus reached out to his civil rights legal team. Within hours, they had drafted a whistleblower suit and filed it under the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act. He also sent copies of the documents to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, a Pulitzer-winning financial journalist at the Atlanta Tribune, and a young, tenacious congresswoman from Georgia who had been quietly pushing for banking reform. The headline that followed broke the internet. Bank executives secretly deny loans based on race, zip code, and looks. Majority shareholder blows the whistle. Carlton Briggs was called to testify in front of a congressional subcommittee within a week. Rachel DeWitt was suspended, and Pinecrest's entire leadership team came under fire. Banks across the Southeast began scrambling to review their own practices. But Marcus wasn't done. He wanted more than resignations. He wanted reform. And for that, he needed to speak publicly. On a cool Thursday evening, Marcus stepped onto the stage at Clark Atlanta University, his alma mater. Cameras flashed. The room was packed. He didn't read from a script. He didn't need one. He spoke from the gut. They thought hiding behind email chains and whiteboard meetings made them untouchable. But justice doesn't care how well you're dressed. This system didn't fail us by accident. It was built to lock us out. My mother was denied a loan because of the color of her skin. My friend Julian was denied one because of the shirt on his back. But today, we say no more. Today, we build a new table. And we don't ask to sit at theirs, we bring our own chairs. The crowd erupted. The board tried to fire Marcus. But they had no legal standing. His 62% majority ownership shielded him, for now. So they tried something else. One by one, anonymous tips began flooding federal agencies, targeting Hillstone Holdings. Allegations of money laundering, falsified grants, overseas shell companies. All false, all designed to smear him. But one particular tip stood out. Late one night, Marcus sat in his study reviewing documents when he received an encrypted message. No sender, just a timestamp. Inside was a PDF file labeled Personal Accounts, Hillstone, Unauthorized Transfer. The document showed that $3.2 million had been moved from Marcus's foundation account without his approval. The destination? A shadow account registered in the name of KJ Investment Group. Marcus frowned. He knew that name. It was one of the companies Julian Cross had once mentioned, a holding company that denied his early investment requests, but kept his application and business plan. Marcus called Janelle. Look into KJ Investment Group. Fast. An hour later, Janelle called back, voice trembling. Marcus, you're not going to like this. Tell me. KJ Investment Group is a shell company. The filing address traces back to a law firm in D.C. Whose law firm? Marcus asked. Janelle hesitated. It's run by your former mentor, Kenneth Jameson. Marcus went still. Jameson was the man who gave him his first shot in banking. The man who promised to open doors. The man who'd always said, play the game quietly and they'll let you win. And now, Marcus realized, he'd been funding the same system that betrayed him. Marcus closed his eyes, chest tightening. He hadn't just been fighting strangers. He'd been protecting snakes in his own circle. Before Marcus Hill built an empire, he was a 23-year-old intern at Briar Capital, lost in a maze of luxury suits and exclusionary smiles. And in the middle of it all stood Kenneth Jameson, the black titan of finance. Polished, powerful, ruthless in the boardroom and beloved on CNN. Jameson had taken Marcus under his wing, bought him lunch, taught him the coded language of survival, introduced him to contacts, opportunities, and, eventually, real money. So when Marcus saw Jameson's name tied to KJ Investment Group, the shell company siphoning funds from his foundation, something inside him cracked. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a gut punch from someone who looked like him, sounded like him, and sold him out anyway. Marcus didn't want rumors. He wanted the truth, face to face. He made a call to Jameson's secretary and requested a meeting under a false pretense. Hillstone expansion consultation. Jameson agreed, eager as ever. They scheduled lunch at the private lounge of the Langston Club in Washington, D.C., a space reserved for elite black executives, where whispers traveled faster than news feeds. Marcus arrived early, sat in the far corner, watched the man walk in. Kenneth Jameson was still the same, elegant charcoal suit, designer glasses, the calm confidence of someone used to being worshipped. He greeted Marcus with a grin. Still disrupting the system, I see, he said, pulling out a chair. Marcus didn't smile. I need to ask you something, he said, sliding a printed document across the table. Bank transfer logs. Shell company links. KJ Investment Group records. Jameson glanced down, then met Marcus's eyes. His face didn't change. Jameson leaned back, crossed one leg over the other. You weren't supposed to find that. Marcus's throat tightened. So it's true. Jameson exhaled slowly. You're smart, Marcus. But you got emotional. Too loud. Too fast. You could have had the system in your hands if you just played the long game. Marcus shook his head. You mean keep my mouth shut while you robbed veterans and profiled black business owners? I built your name, Jameson snapped. And you're trying to tear down the house before you even learn how the plumbing works. No, Marcus said firmly. I'm tearing down the rot. Jameson chuckled bitterly. You think you're making history, but all you're doing is making enemies. Powerful ones. Ones who don't just fire you, they erase you. That night, Marcus returned to Atlanta shaken but more determined than ever. He shared the evidence with his legal team, including documentation that Jameson's law firm had not only funneled stolen funds from Hillstone Holdings, but also orchestrated financial chokeholds on black-owned businesses across the Southeast. Julian Cross's original loan application had been one of the first targets. The operation was massive, and the circle was tight. It was Jameson's machine, built to look like opportunity, but rigged to bleed power from every black hand that touched it. Marcus held a private meeting with his core team, Janelle, Curtis, Layla, the civil rights attorney, and 2 forensic auditors. They mapped out Jameson's network. Shell companies laundering money through non-profits. Lobbyists bribed to stall equitable banking legislation. Executives placed on Pinecrest's board under fake credentials. Multiple whistleblowers discredited and silenced. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as Jameson designed it. Marcus stood up from the table, pacing. We take him down. We don't just blow up a man. We ignite an entire industry. Janelle nodded. Then let it burn. The next morning, Marcus held a press conference. He revealed the full scope of the fraud, named Jameson publicly, and submitted all documentation to the Justice Department. The media exploded, but so did the pushback. Sponsors dropped out. Corporate allies distanced themselves. Anonymous threats surged, and Marcus's name was dragged into headlines. Too radical to trust? From finance phenom to industry pyromaniac? Marcus stayed quiet, because the story wasn't about him anymore. It was about every vet, every single mom, every startup founder who never even got the chance. 3 days later, the betrayal Marcus never expected arrived. His longtime COO, Anthony Briggs, resigned without warning. Anthony had been with him from day one. Through every acquisition, every expansion, Marcus called. Why, Ant? There was silence on the other end. Then, I got a call from the SEC this morning. They're opening an investigation into you. What? Jameson leaked a memo. Says you misused foundation funds. He has a fake audit trail. Marcus's heart dropped. He's framing me. Marcus, Anthony hesitated. I can't go down with you. I have a family. The line went dead. Marcus stood in his office alone. For the first time, he realized he might lose everything. That night, as Marcus sat in the dark staring at old photos of his mother, the woman who taught him dignity, discipline, and how to dream, his phone buzzed. A blocked number. He picked up. A voice crackled on the other end, low and distorted. You don't know the full story. Jameson didn't start this. He was just the face. If you really want the truth, look into the Heritage Consortium. They've been running this game since your mother cleaned their boardrooms. Click. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. His mother. This went deeper than Kenneth. It went back decades. It went back to her. Marcus sat alone in his office, the city lights of Atlanta painting streaks across his window. His phone was still in his hand, the caller long gone. Look into the Heritage Consortium. They've been running this game since your mother cleaned their boardrooms. His mother, Gloria Hill. A woman who worked quietly, raised him alone, never asked for much, never told him much about the people she worked for. But he remembered the names, the buildings, the stories. When Marcus was a child, Gloria cleaned office towers in Midtown. She'd bring home old papers to scribble on. Sometimes she'd mention the suits upstairs, but never with names. Marcus never thought to ask. Until now. He called Janelle. I need every file you can find on the Heritage Consortium. She paused. That name's not in any of our financial logs. Then check the city archives. Off-the-record donors. Old trust fund registries. Anything that smells like generational money trying to stay invisible. By dawn, Janelle had a lead. A 1967 incorporation. The Heritage Consortium Foundation. Publicly, it was created to preserve Southern history and promote philanthropy. Privately, its assets were spread across private equity firms, real estate trusts, and regional banks, including Pinecrest's original backers. Its board? Carlton Briggs's father, Kenneth Jameson's grandfather, 2 former Georgia governors, and one name Marcus had never heard before, Elizabeth Foster. Elizabeth Foster wasn't just a philanthropist. She was the original architect of visual risk metrics, the same system used to deny veterans like Julian Cross and working-class families like Marcus's mother from ever owning land or gaining loans. She wrote policy guides in the 80s that became templates for quietly discriminatory lending. She never appeared in videos, rarely gave interviews, but she was still alive. age 89, living in Charleston, and Marcus was going to see her. He drove to Charleston alone. The Foster estate was massive, ancient brick columns, iron gates, the kind of plantation remnant wealth that no PR campaign could whitewash. He rang the bell. A housekeeper opened the door. Inside, everything smelled like thyme and old secrets. And there she sat, Elizabeth Foster. White hair, perfect posture, eyes like steel sharpened by decades of untouched power. She looked at Marcus without flinching. "I was wondering when one of you would come knocking," she said. "I'm not here for politeness," Marcus began. "I want to know what the Heritage Consortium is really about, and how my mother fits into it." Elizabeth tilted her head. "Gloria Hill. Now that's a name I haven't heard in years." "She worked for you?" "No," Elizabeth said with a faint smile. "She protected you." Marcus's chest tightened. Elizabeth pulled out a weathered file and placed it on the table. "Your mother found documents once, during her cleaning shift. Ledgers. Notes. She was going to expose us." Marcus clenched his fists. "But," Elizabeth continued, "we gave her a choice. Stay quiet, keep her job, and we'd make sure you had a shot. We offered her a scholarship for you, placed a call to Clark Atlanta, connected you with Kenneth." Marcus felt the room tilt. His rise wasn't random. It had been engineered. He stood. "So you bought her silence?" "No," Elizabeth replied, voice cool. "She sacrificed her voice for your future." Marcus drove straight to Columbus. His mother lived in a modest single-story home surrounded by rose bushes. She was cooking when he walked in. She turned, surprised. "Marcus? Baby, what are you?" He didn't wait. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, holding back tears. "About the Heritage Consortium. About what you gave up." Gloria's face fell. She sat quietly, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I was going to. One day." Marcus lowered himself into a chair. "You knew what they were doing. You knew what Jameson was. And you let them." "I let them give you a path out," she said gently. "I knew I couldn't change the system. But maybe I could raise someone who could." Marcus's heart broke. "All this time I thought I built this alone." "You did," she whispered. "I just swept the path behind you." That night, Gloria gave him an envelope. "I wrote this when you graduated college. Never had the courage to give it to you." Inside was a letter. "My sweet Marcus. Asterisk if you're reading this, you've seen what I never wanted you to carry. There are things I chose not to fight so you wouldn't have to start your life in war. But I hope if one day you do fight back, you'll do it not to punish, but to rebuild. Asterisk. Don't burn the house down. Redesign the blueprint. With love, Mama." Marcus folded the letter with shaking hands. Tears streamed down his face. 2 days later, Janelle called. "You need to get to D.C. now. There's something you need to see in person." Marcus arrived at a private meeting room arranged by his legal team. On the table was a thick red folder marked Heritage Vault, Classified. Inside were photographs, documents, ledgers, dates, signatures, and one envelope marked Project Mantle, activated 2023. Janelle looked at him, eyes wide. "It's a last resort initiative. If the Heritage Consortium feels threatened, they activate this." Marcus opened the file. His own name was on the list. So was his mother's. And next to both, neutralize, discredit, or remove. Marcus looked up, stunned. "They're coming after us." After discovering his and his mother's names on the Project Mantle hit list, Marcus did what many would never dare. He went public. Holding a press conference with his legal team, veteran leaders, and grassroots activists behind him, Marcus exposed the Heritage Consortium's multi-decade conspiracy. Fraudulent denials of loans and mortgages. Engineered gentrification via city zoning. political puppets funded by trust money, and a decades-long manipulation of upward mobility for black communities. "I will not be intimidated," Marcus said into the microphone. "They put my mother's name on a list to be erased. But this system forgot one thing: we are not easy to delete." The reaction was immediate and electric. News outlets led with the story for weeks. Senators demanded hearings. The FBI opened a multi-agency investigation into the Heritage Consortium. Whistleblowers emerged from across the country. People who had been silenced, fired, or threatened. And Gloria Hill? She was no longer just a janitor from Columbus. She became a national symbol of quiet resistance. The woman who swept floors for the powerful, then raised the man who brought them to justice. But power doesn't give up easily. On a rainy Monday morning, Marcus received word that Kenneth Jameson had filed a civil countersuit, accusing Marcus of defamation, sabotage, and financial terrorism. The case was set to be heard in federal court. It was meant to break him. But Marcus came prepared, with files, witnesses, and his mother by his side. In court, Gloria took the stand. At 67, she stood tall in her Sunday dress and said, "They told me to stay silent for the sake of my son. But silence is a slow death. I raised Marcus to speak, and now the whole world is listening." Her testimony was the turning point. The court ruled in Marcus's favor. Jameson's countersuit was dismissed with prejudice. The Department of Justice announced a formal dismantling of the Heritage Consortium's financial arms. And Marcus? He didn't just win a case. He changed the rules of the game. Months later, the Gloria Hill Initiative launched across the South. Its mission: provide funding and mentorship to first-time black entrepreneurs. Offer free legal counsel to those denied loans. Educate communities on financial literacy and ownership rights. Marcus also worked with lawmakers to introduce the Equity in Lending Act, designed to end legacy-based lending discrimination. Gloria sat front row at the signing ceremony, tears in her eyes. On the one-year anniversary of the press conference that rocked the nation, Marcus stood before a new class of interns at Pinecrest First Bank. No longer just a company, but a movement. He wore the same hoodie that started it all. He looked into their eyes and said, "The world will try to measure your worth by your clothes, your address, or the shade of your skin. But those are distractions. Real power doesn't wear a suit. Real power doesn't need permission. Real power is when you know where you come from, and you refuse to be silent about it." The room erupted in applause. Life lesson. They tried to erase me. They tried to erase my mother. They tried to erase our dreams, our dignity, our seat at the table. But what they didn't know is that we were never asking for a seat. We were building the damn table. So if they ever doubt you, because of how you look, where you come from, or what your last name is, don't fight to be accepted. Fight to be undeniable. Because legacy isn't built in boardrooms. It's built in the hearts of those who refuse to bow. The system tried to silence him. Instead, Marcus Hill rewrote the blueprint.